day 3, Ari and Logan here, and we're back to illustration live in San Francisco. It's been really rainy today, but we made it. We're so committed.
It was very wet.
Yes. And thanks everyone who's joining. Let us know where you're from. Let us know if you've been with us from day 1.
And if it's raining there.
Yes. How is the weather, first of all? Have you been with us from day 1, or are you joining for the first time today? We want to know. And where are you? Hey Hector, hi Caroline, hi Bea, Vishwesh. We have a lot of people that joined from the first day.
Awesome. Welcome back.
Great. Yeah.
Glad to have you with us all 3 days.
So,
not that we're doing something that's continuous, but kind of. There's elements.
Yeah, there's a lot of themes.
Lots of arty themes.
Oh, Boris says it's snowing.
Ooh, extreme rain.
Lots of snow in England from Ian.
Awesome. I moved from the East Coast to avoid that.
Yeah, Amber says it's raining.
Awesome, same club.
Is it nice anywhere? Is anyone in the
No,
sun?
the world is just dark.
Is anyone enjoying the weather? Probably not.
I mean, if you enjoy rain.
Some people do.
Seattle.
I like it when I'm home and I'm like cozy. Anaga's in the Bay Area. Yes, it's pouring.
If the answer was no, it's absolutely beautiful here, and you're like, but wait.
It's sunny in Fort Lauderdale, says Jim. Nadia.
So we can be jealous of Jim.
Cold. Yes, everyone be jealous of Jim.
Oh,
And
sunny
Thomas.
in Florida.
Thomas says it's nice in Brazil. Thomas, Jessica, Jim, you're all lucky. And India, it's sunny.
They wished harder than us.
Okay, thanks everyone. So we're so excited you're here, and we're gonna look back at what we did yesterday, the exploding toaster here on Logan's computer, and it was really cool to see your process vectorizing a sketch that you had already done.
I got distracted by answering questions, so I didn't get to accomplish as much, but as promised, I finished it up afterwards. And this is kind of a more refined version of the Photoshop drawing in order to provide, I heard that the layering kind of technique of different people is of interest. So for this, since I was doing a risograph out of this Photoshop drawing, I ended up just doing a quick, one's blue and one's pink.
Can you zoom in
Oh,
on
yeah.
the image a little bit?
Ugh.
There you go.
So this pink one, I have it at 30% just for my own kind of working needs to understand what I'm going to end up using as that color compared to the line work. But for an example of what a risograph I've made previously is,
Ooh.
I have
Okay, let's
these.
see this on the GoPro.
So
this
handy.
Yeah.
So this one's going to be very much like these, using a 2-color palette in which the line work is going to be this kind of bright blue, and it's going to blend with the pink in a certain way, and then the pink itself is going to be the first layer. So in this Photoshop file, I've made the gray layer represent the pink, and then the black layer represent the blue for my own understanding when I go to the printing. So ultimately, when printing it, I'd end up having to print
That's cool.
this as one layer, which looks like garbage.
Oh,
So you'd print this out first as the pink, and then
he's showing me only the pink part of his toaster, which was weird.
afterward, the line work. So
Do you always do these colors?
right now, it's the colors I've been working with. They're the ones available because the other ones need to be refilled. But I also just love punchy blue and pinks, and they make this cool purple when they mix.
Yeah.
And so you
It's
can
a
kind
lot
of,
brighter in person
yeah,
for those of you watching.
like neon-ish.
Yeah.
But yeah, with a risograph, depending on the ink that you use and the paper you use, it's going to blend differently, much like the inks are going to blend differently, similar to how screen printing is.
Maybe it's brighter.
No.
No.
But you know the size.
Yes, this is the size. This is what we're working towards. And it's a little brighter in person. My orange looks brighter than this, which is weird. This is much brighter. Oh, we're trying to focus. Yeah.
Smile. Smile like the watermelon.
Yeah, the watermelon's so cool. So these are all fruits, it looks like.
Yeah.
Apple, grapefruit, and watermelon.
Yep.
Cool.
So I'll be printing this one and putting it up online. But I didn't have time this morning, so this is kind of what a working file of what you see there would look like. And then, in complete comparison, but using the same piece essentially, was this one, which I finished up, which is just a colorized vector version of the same design. But I would be using this for like a website or a larger print or something stylistically if I just wanted something different and more clean when the other one's a little bit more grungy. But the sketch was ultimately the same and came from the iPad in any case.
Yeah, it's great that you can repurpose it for print and screen and everything.
Yep. And actually for the merch thing, I totally plan on making these into like shirts, small prints, and pins.
Oh, that's what AL said.
Yeah, I just saw that. May as well convert these things that are just fun to make anyway into stuff other people can enjoy anyway.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And in this one, if you can see the layers on the bottom right, I've sort of broken out. This one would just be paper. But I tend to make a whole new grouping for each section so I know what to work in and what I can toggle on and off at a time. So with outline, without the eyes, without the toaster's eyes. And this way it just allows me to keep track. Not that I would be handing this off to anyone, but if I ever go back to the file or I need to make edits, I'm not going through a thing that's just layer 300 something, where I'll get incredibly lost and confused and frustrated with my past self.
That takes a lot of discipline to put them in separate layers.
There's definitely a benefit to, much like organizing anything, long-term value is going to be worth it.
Yeah. Nick Gioia loves your stuff.
Thank you.
Danielle says it's really cool. Hector says the colors are amazing. Danielle says, any pointers for using your graphics for prints? Well, this is pretty much what we're talking about. You talked about how you have the 2 layers on that other document.
Yeah, so it depends on what kind of printing you want to do. If it's screen printing, which is the poster we'll be working on later, you would want to limit the palette because otherwise it's going to get extreme. And you're not going to be able to do gradients the same way. It'll have to be sort of dotted or pixelated in some way that's going to provide the one color to then blend with the other color to create that kind of shift.
Yeah.
When with digital, you can just have gradients that provide tons of colors. And so for print, in that sense, with screen printing or book printing or anything, you would probably be using CMYK files, when with digital it would be RGB. So
okay, that's a good point.
It'll sort of help limit your palette too, because when you're working, it won't let you hit certain colors when it's on CMYK.
Okay, so that's a great tip when you're working for print. Use CMYK colors.
But if they're printing digitally, you could send this and they'll just do like a sticker-like thing that is that weird tacky feel.
It's a different style. But I just want to say welcome to those of you that have joined in the last few minutes. We're so excited to have you for our last day, and we have a challenge again today. We also have a lot more going on. So after this, at 11 a.m., we're going to have Kirk Wallace and Kathleen, which has been happening for the last 2 days, just in case you forgot. And then we have Lydia Lukianova, hosted by Ren Sauer. 3 p.m., we have Mark Uzmiani, and Kathleen will be back hosting. So we have a lot of live streaming for the last day. Make sure that you make the last day worth it, and stay tuned. And you can enter the challenge if you are on behance.net/live. Look at the challenge tab above the chat, and that will give you all the details. We're creating a file constrained by 3 colors, and you can download the colors and create your illustration.
So are there colors already in that?
Yeah, so if you look over here, I'm just going to show Logan, there's 3 colors. Palette. Yeah, it's from yours. So
nice.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a challenge, but that's why it's called a challenge.
I mean,
and the theme is movement. So as you can see on the poster example there's a girl on a bike. You've got a bike that you're doing today too. So
Another
take that theme, roll with it, use those colors, and see if those restrictions can really challenge you and motivate you to think outside the box. So, what do we... Oh, should we look at some comics that you've worked on?
Yeah, just before getting started, kind of following up from day one, here's some examples of comics I've done previously and how, using the design I've done through other printing processes, I've chosen to do covers that are more minimal compared to the inside that's very complex. But for process kind of questions, in this case, I've worked directly with my writer, who is Fabian, and we came up with the story together. I did all the ink work and original drawings and storyboarding, but then because of time framing where we need to have 22 pages done per month, we ended up having to outsource the coloring. But I worked very closely with him and would provide the inks. He would send back some ideas and questions, provide kind of 2 examples of what that page could look like. But it was a whole collaborative process where I trusted the colorist to eventually go on to where by issue 4, he would provide all 22 pages at once, and I would just give feedback based on the kind of first issue that was the most intense one to figure out how we're gonna work together. But it's interesting to see your personal work tackled by someone else, where when I was originally coloring this, it was a limited palette, and I have some examples of that in the back. In the very back,
probably should be the one flipping through this.
I mean, yeah, all the, like a little bit forward some more. So these are some character studies, which were kind of like the 2-tone value that we were just looking at, but then a little bit more. These kind of sketches on the left were more of the how can I limit my palette, and I was imagining the comic to be that way, but once it went to print, much like anything, the general publisher thought that for a larger audience that all the colors involved and having a full palette would be better.
Yeah.
But for personal projects or zines or something, I love that kind of stuff. So
Jim asks, where can we grab one of those?
So they should be in comic stores around the country, at least. I don't know where around the world, but they were on Amazon. I think the original issues are mostly gone because it's a 4-issue series, but you can probably find the trade paperback still. Most comic shops can order it.
Search Namwolf on Amazon. Great.
And then same for Killstrike.
And then we have Killstrike. Here, you can flip through that so you can show the stuff that you want to show.
So this was Killstrike, which I did before Namwolf, but I did this with Max Bemis, and this was the transitional comic where I purchased this Wacom about halfway through. So the style ended up shifting to where this cover I did traditionally, but, well, I did the inking and penciling traditionally on Bristol and then would take that into Photoshop and do the coloring in Photoshop. But then by the time I started getting into the digital drawing, I was able to do these kind of like overly complex, detailed drawings that eventually, when you realize you're just like zooming in intensely and doing too much detail work without realizing how far you've zoomed in, and then you start zooming out. It's a good thing to keep in check. When working on Bristol, you know exactly how big it's going to print out. So this is just another person colored this as well. Again, worked closely with them, but in order to kind of figure out what the palette was and what style, and then making like compromises where maybe they want to kind of try some stuff out. Limiting them is not really the best partnership, so allowing them to also practice their art form and having trust is really important. But yeah, this one you can also find in comic shops, I think around everywhere at this point. But it's like a father-wife relationship deal, but also comics.
Cool.
So they're both kind of silly.
Jim says he snagged it on Amazon.
Cool.
And Raymond says hello from Ivory Coast. Hi,
Hello.
Raymond. Love your work, Logan.
Thank you.
Everyone loves the illustrations. So we had a little trip down memory lane for those comic books that you created. I know a lot of you were interested to see what Logan has created. And is there, like, if they go on your website, will they find the names of those?
Yeah, I think they're, at least Namwolf's there.
Okay.
Killstrike can be found deep back. That's like a 3-year-old project, I think, at this point. But yeah.
Yeah, so check out Namwolf. As you can see, it's super easy. Jim just found it and ordered it already online. So
Awesome.
Do you have more to say about yesterday's project?
Nothing directly, I think.
All right.
pretty much going over the comparisons. I was hoping to have the print done, but I think those risographs give a good example
are great examples
of what to expect when transferring it. And the fact you could work digitally, see only this version, but then the way it's printed or how someone else might print it provides this interesting kind of collaboration and something that a lot of digital work doesn't have, where like some mistakes are happy mistakes. Again, going back to the Bob Ross method.
Yes.
That I love when like things don't quite line up, and if I'm in control of it all, I'll want to make it as clean as possible, but sometimes that's just not the most appealing, and I need to catch myself on that. So,
all right.
Yeah.
A lot of people are joining. Hi, Yuzu again from Freezing, Austria. Hey, Robzilla, good to see you. And Daryl asked, can you recap how the textures were created in the toaster? You just used brushes, right?
Yeah, so for the Illustrator toaster or the sketched Photoshop toaster? Dun, dun, dun.
Daryl, I think you need to ask again what exactly. I think it's the Photoshop one, because I think that's what you were showing, the black and white before.
Yeah. These
oh, he said Illustrator.
Okay,
Sorry.
cool. Oh no.
Everyone wants to know about the Illustrator textures.
Chug, chug, chug. Yeah, so in Illustrator, I have these kind of speckled looking textures that I get from this brush I ended up getting. I didn't make it, being lazy. But it's got different variations, or when you change the point size, the speckles kind of enlarge, so you're able to use it for smaller areas, larger areas, depending on what size you're working. But since it's all vector, it's very scalable. But I usually end up using that brush to make these textures, and then inside I'll also have this gradient, which you can make a quick mask for. Oh, it's over here. That goes over the whole toaster. So again, the layering system, I'll end up making, for instance, I think the toast I did last, but it's got this gradient over it just as a finished piece to kind of let it create value between that and the toaster. But this here is the entire shape that I've quick masked. And so everything below it is just contained in this one shape of the toast. So I'd started off by making this shape within the line work, and then kind of figuring out what color mixes I want to provide. And inside, this is where one of the kind of darker speckled textures are. But this is all this line work with just this texture provided to it. And I've set it at a 30%. So you're able to kind of see how this color that's just the color that's in this eye ring has then blended with the color behind it. So you never get too far away from the limited palette that's still this yellow, pink, and blue. And so it just kind of has this cohesive feel when it's all done, and you don't have to think too hard about it.
Yeah. Ryan Seacrest.
That is,
we remember that.
That is actually the one that I am the biggest fan of, I think.
Yeah. Are you still here? I forgot who suggested that name, Ryan Seacrest. It is toast, Nick. Christopher asked about Killstrike. Maybe we can transition to the new project after this.
Sure.
Is it meant to gently riff on 90s image characters?
It absolutely was. So it was this conversation that came out of me talking with Max Bemis about, if you know Max Bemis from Say Anything, he has this kind of like dark, satirical thing about society in general. He used to do a bunch of like emo, I mean, he still does emo music, but he's in that vein. So he is of a similar age as me, and so we both grew up with Image Comics, which was the Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld leaving Marvel to go make like adult comics. But by adult in the 90s, they just meant extremely large-breasted women and guys with way too many muscles, and everything was ridiculous, and the writing was just always about violence. And so as like a 10 or 12-year-old, I was thinking this was the best thing ever. And so I still have all my Image comics, but while now looking back on it, we see it as being ridiculous and silly. At the time, they were getting paid out ridiculous. They were making all the money in the comic industry. And so the book kind of reflects on the idea of this guy who is a writer, who hits a writer's block, but he's a writer from that time period in modern day, and he doesn't know how to get beyond that. So he ends up having to really go back into his comic box, find the old comics he made, which was Killstrike, and then it's kind of a Ghost of Christmas Past situation where Killstrike comes to him as this ethereal creature kind of thing that follows him through life and helps guide him into his new adulthood, where he's a dad now with a newborn child, he's a husband. So how does he become an adult past this like ridiculous childhood kind of love he had, but still retain that? So I think it has to do a lot with like where both of us were of being super nerdy children into comics and video games, growing up into, oh yeah, I have a job, a girlfriend, I'm going to be like owning a house soon. How do I manage?
Adulthood is not easy.
I know, so much more to balance.
It's really meaningful themes in there. It's not just pretty illustrations.
But it's also funny.
Yes,
so,
that's
much
important.
like life.
Okay, so let's look at what we're doing today. Hi, everyone who's just joining. It's great to have you. Let us know where you're from. Hi, Boris, Zubin. Hi, Terrence. Vishwesh asks, do you compose layouts of comics in Photoshop or Illustrator?
I do Photoshop. And that way, I do all my comic stuff in Photoshop, except for if I need to do like logos or lettering or anything. But I'll create the pages at the scale that the pages will be ultimately, so I can do the quick sketching on that. And then when I need to ink it and color it, I can just make that one layer and draw on top of it, so I never have to scan a pencil drawing in or expand it to a point where it's not gonna be legible anymore because it gets too pixelated. But
cool.
Yeah.
All right, so today's project. While Logan is opening that, make sure that you check the challenge tab if you're on behance.net/live. We have a new challenge for today, and we'll be reviewing your submissions. You only have about an hour left, an hour and 10 minutes to submit something for Logan to see.
Nice. So today's challenge is very related to what I'll be working on here, which is a screen printed poster that's 18 by 20. And the piece that you're kind of pulling the palette from is from a bike series I did 2 or 3 years ago. And this is going to be like this year's version. So it makes a lot of sense that the two are going to be utilized alongside one another. But I think that one was also a 3-color palette limitation. And this one's going to be a 3-color palette limitation. But I originally sketched this out in the iPad as a very loose pencil sketch, and then brought it into here and kind of futzed with the colors a bit just to figure out what kind of direction I want to go in. So originally this background was kind of a bright neon yellow, and then another time it was a dark night kind of scape. But I kind of like how the paper, I've also labeled this paper because I would go to French's paper website and just kind of like go through the different tonalities, see which one calls to me, grab like 6 of those, drag them into Photoshop and pull them directly from the JPEGs they have available, and make those layers at the base of my file. So I can just toggle them on and off and see what actually feels best in context. So in this case, I ended up going with this kind of like peachy for now. And so the limit palette situation would be kind of how in this body, I've created this original kind of pink shape as a general layout for this is where the figure will go and this is the negative spaces. But then in it, there's this one layer that is at 100% that originally kind of has this blue color. But when doing screen printing also, there's part of the mistake or happy accidents or whatever is like, if you start with this color, the transparency of it is going to be different than another color. And so it's going to blend with the pink in some fashion. So setting it to a multiply kind of helps understand that what I see here is never going to be exactly what it's going to be when it's printed, but at least it gives me a better understanding of how it might end up turning out. But you can turn on and off these kind of toggles where these two would be one layer, So like the lips, the tattoo outlines. And then this would be a second layer that is that same top layer, but at I believe it's a 40% transparency, which would also be set to multiply to kind of give the understanding that in screen printing, you have kind of two goes with the color. So you have the one that's going to be the 100% opacity, and then you have the one that's going to be almost a 50%, which is another screen. And so you're kind of able to pull two colors out of one color. In this case, this kind of blue can also turn into this purple when blending into this pink skin tone. And then the white could potentially be another color that then would go on top of the paper, and in this case have to knock out the shape in the helmet, because otherwise you're gonna have that white blending in with the blue. And then this kind of like line work was just from the sketch, but I kind of like how it looks on top, so I think I'm gonna play around with that a bit more. So this is like I have an hour of period to kind of like play with a palette, but I'm not totally sure what I'm doing yet. And then to do a final one, I would just take this, gray it out, and then work right on top of it. So I will do that now.
All right. Hi, everyone who's joining. We saw a lot of people from Brazil, Nepal. Milan's from Nepal. Hi, Mitch. Hi, Jan. Hi, Daryl again. Hi, Ugliesa. Let us know where you're from if you're just joining, and make sure that you participate in the challenge. The challenge for today, the theme is movement, and you're constrained by a color palette of 3 colors. So this is kind of echoing what Logan is doing right now. He's not working with a huge variety of colors, and he's showing you how you can create a lot of variation while constraining your color palette. Hi, Kimberly. Vicky in India, Ivan from Buenos Aires, JC in London, how is the snow treating you? Elena from Spain, Kai from Germany, Jade from the UK, snowy Midlands, yes, I'm sure. Boris, I think that the whole point is that we have this color palette, so try to use that. I think it would be really interesting to see how that constraint really pushes you to create something outside the box, outside of what you were expecting. Okay, so you're pulling out your colors here.
Yeah, so kind of as a starting point, I'll typically start with a 3-tone color palette that I can work with, and then if it adjusts as things go on and I realize one blends weird with another, I can adjust that. But at least I have something to start with. Kind of like when you start a painting, you'll have a palette, and having 3 colors on that palette is probably a good way to prevent yourself from kind of using 7 and making it a total mess.
Yeah. Are those 2 on the right different colors?
Oh, I haven't.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I haven't changed it yet.
Can I see? Kat says you're doing a good explanation of the process.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Kat. Oh. I was going to say the same thing again. JC says she's doing badly with the snow because snow kind of sucks as an adult. That's true. When you're a kid, you're like, oh, we don't have to go to school.
But I have skipped out on going to work at times because it's snowing and it's too dangerous to get there.
Oh, yeah.
Because no one else would show up, so then I get to stay home and kind of like, much like the rain, enjoy it from not being outside in it.
Yeah, that's good. But then when you're an adult, like, work doesn't end. Like, you'll just have to catch up with it later.
It's true.
But with school, it was kind of like, oh, I didn't go to school. I had the day free.
Yeah, at school they're like, yeah, you owe us maybe a homework thing. When at work it's like, this thing fell apart. Thanks so much.
So a couple people are confused about the challenge.
The challenge?
I'm going to read it again.
Because it was motion, yeah?
Movement is the theme. So only these colors should be used, but Nick is asking if white is considered a color.
I mean, technically it is. It's every color.
I don't know. I mean, the example includes white. So I think that's where it's coming from.
I think white is acceptable.
I guess different values of those colors are okay. So you could take it all the way.
I think it's like you have the 3 colors, and then one color could essentially be the paper. And then if you want to use that white in the composition itself, think of it as negative space. So it's going through to the paper as opposed to being on top.
So you have to use those colors, but you can be creative with maybe the opacity and the value of them and layering them. Gregory says, any tips on picking up freelance illustration clients? I'm currently freelancing, but only really work with branding and web right now because I can't find clients for illustration.
I mean, illustration is definitely a tough one to get for freelancing work. And they don't pay super great if it's certain clients. They'll just be like, oh, you're worth $300. Then you sort of have to defend your value against that. And some places will absolutely listen and say, yeah, we were just hoping to keep it in this budget, or they will just never respond. But illustration I found to be the harder one, and the best way to kind of do it is reaching out to companies that you like and would love to contribute to. So if it's magazines or websites or branding things or anything that you like, it never hurts to send stuff to them or just like start a conversation. I used to go around and pick up local magazines and kind of try to collect emails from those that I could just shotgun out. And that was like, okay, but if I'm actually passionate about a thing as opposed to just anything I can get, I'll definitely write a better email and provide better context as to why I think my style would benefit. And then there's some places where their style definitely wouldn't be for me, so I probably wouldn't work on the New Yorker or something because that's just not where I belong, but maybe Juxtapose or something is more what my style would fit. So also knowing where your market is and who's going to appreciate it.
Great advice. Can we make it a little bit bigger? That's great. I always... That's perfect. I just want it to be big for the chat so they can see every detail.
So then I'll be doing this one in Illustrator while the sketch was in Photoshop, but I've also done screen printing through Photoshop means. But this is kind of just to try out my own super loosey-goosey thing into a more textured Photoshop realm.
Yeah.
So I could undo this now, or awkwardly move this.
Okay. Do you want to be on the laptop?
For now.
Okay.
This thing's so wacky because it's gigantic.
Okay. I think you're good.
Good.
Okay. Nihan says the illustration colors kind of complement my sweater.
Perfect. Must be a good sweater.
No, this.
Oh, yours?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, except that orange.
I know.
It's super punchy.
It's too much. I'm going to cover it up.
But at least it's not, what did you call it yesterday? What it was doing?
Moire. Yeah, yesterday I was moiring so hard. It was like crazy. But some people liked it. Hi, Yannick. Thanks for joining. Jim says, I did a quick 1.5-minute video teaser to send to stir up conversation for potential clients. It's been very effective, and I highly recommend.
Cool.
That's great.
Also, anything that's going to be extremely quick. So if you have a website where they can just see the content real quickly, or if it's a video where you just have your best things and it's in a very short period of time. But if they have to dig for anything, that's always going to be a hard barrier to kind of cross.
No one wants to do extra work to see your stuff. If you send an email, Vicky's asking who I am. My name is Ari. I work at Adobe on the Typekit team. And this ties into what I was just saying because I get a lot of emails from people who've created fonts that they want to include on Typekit. And a lot of times they'll say, hi, I'm really interested in Typekit. I have these fonts that I'd like to include, but they just say like the names and there's no link, there's no website. they just have their first name, and I'm like, okay, now I have to respond to you and say, hey, can you please send me your website? And then they send it, and then I have to click there. It's like, for me, when I'm getting a lot of submissions, it's kind of the same with a client. If they're getting a lot of people reaching out to them, they want to see it right there. Like, Logan, your website's really great. You click on it, it has all your work there. There's no extra clicking and searching for things. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, there's in comics, they would call the like quick handoff piece you'd send to the publisher an ash can, because it was presumed that they would look at it for 30 seconds to a minute and then throw it into the garbage can, which they were also using for their ashtrays back in the day. So yeah.
You only have like that few seconds to make an impression, especially now with our attention span being so small.
Womp womp.
Hi, Beatrice from Romania. Hi, Andres from Colombia. Darbaz. Hello, Adobe's. What's up? I like that. Adobe's. Hannah says Logan has more stickers on his laptop than yesterday. I don't believe that.
No.
No, he's still missing one right here. He has a little empty space. So, yeah, I can tell it's the same.
Yeah,
I'm monitoring.
Until I find that sticker, that would be all right.
I know.
I just haven't found that right size yet.
It's very important to find the right sticker for you. So, guys, I don't have any submissions yet for the challenge. I said guys, I mean everybody on the chat. Y'all.
Y'all's a good middle ground.
I say guys too much. It's not good. So please look at the challenge. If you're on behance.net/live and you're in the chat, it's right above the chat. The challenge tab shows you all the details. You're constrained to 3 colors, and the theme is movement. And you could only use those 3 colors, but you could be creative with how you overlap them, their opacity, and all that. So I think it's actually going to open a lot of doors for you, even though you're going to be restricted to that. Hi, Omar from Morocco. Darbaz says, I always feel happy when there's a live from Adobe.
Yay.
We're so happy that you're here.
It's like, once someone referred to me as the heavy metal Mr. Rogers, because I would like wear metal shirts and then a cardigan.
That's
and
so
so
funny.
I feel like he was a good way to wake up, and thus maybe this is fitting.
Yeah. It's your morning show.
I just don't have a theme song yet.
You do have like an edgy yet really kind
Yay.
character.
I'm glad it shows through.
Yes.
Shines.
You're shining your light. Okay, so you're an Illustrator using...
Most of the time.
Right now. And what's going to happen with this? I'm not really clear.
What's going to happen?
Yeah.
Just
After you've blocked everything.
Adding like textures and gradient to it, but through like speckling as opposed to colored gradients, because those aren't going to be transferable when it comes to a screen print. So being able to kind of showcase how, like the one yesterday was gradients and speckles and everything.
Yeah.
This one's just going to be speckles and textures that are made from the same color as the layer above.
Okay, so 2 questions about Illustrator while you're working. Christopher says, do you ever do final work in Illustrator that retains the more improvisation look of your sketch work?
Not often, but that is a thing that kind of like I'll use Illustrator as the one that's cleaning up that, but I should do a little bit more of that. Depends on the project.
Mm-hmm. And Gregory says, why are you using Illustrator on this as opposed to Photoshop?
I'll probably use Photoshop, but right now I'm using Illustrator as a like test because I haven't tried this on Illustrator yet, and I want to kind of see how it would look in comparison. But I'll be doing the final one on Photoshop, so this is like a middle ground. I'm gonna go back onto this thing. But I just want to tackle this face, see how that is, and then move over there.
And then we'll move to the Wacom Cintiq 22-inch HD. Okay, you're probably gonna ask a few times, so remember, it's 22-inch HD Cintiq.
Yeah, I typically would use Photoshop for that, but I want to do like a representation of what a screen print using Illustrator that I would do would look like with the textures in comparison to yesterday's thing.
Okay. Jones, yes, he's using the trackpad. This has been a theme of the last 2 days. A lot of people are surprised, shocked, amused, worried about his wrists.
Oh no.
But this is his method. But you use the Wacom a lot, and then you're using the stylus, so you're not always stuck on here.
Yeah, not always, but definitely more than maybe I should be. It's all those coffee shops just make it really convenient.
Nick says, in response to what we were talking about with sending your stuff to clients, I'm interviewing for a new video guy right now. Let me tell you, long overdone resumes, long video portfolios, unorganized website portfolios are a no-go at this station. That's true. It's a good way to
People get bored easily.
weed people out if they're, wasting your time. Lindsay says, I'm a trackpad user as well.
Yay. I used to work with a guy who just never used not the trackpad. So,
Always use the trackpad?
yeah, for everything. Like, he was primarily a designer, but he also did a lot of illustration. I just don't know why. He had the option to have not trackpad.
Brian is like, how does he create that grainy effect? I can't believe it's in Illustrator.
That's why I'm doing this before Photoshop.
Yeah.
To see the grainy effect. But yeah, it's you can either find textures that are like spatter, which I have in this little folder I've dragged over. It's essentially just the file like this. You could either make them or find people who have them, or like scan something and then vectorize it so then you can create your own textures.
How would you make that?
You essentially just scan, like if there's a dirty table and you scan that, so if this was like a table with speckles on it, you could then scan that, bring it into Photoshop or into Illustrator, and then just blow out the contrast and save only this part, which is the speckled part, as like a texture to go to, so it's just pure black. And then when you add it to something, you could change that color and apply it to something so it can look almost like grungy paper. But I always have a folder of those and then a folder of brushes that have textures. So for drawing, you can do that, or for just laying on top of a layer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. We have one submission so far.
Oh boy.
Let's look at it real quick. There's a lot of movement happening.
Whoa.
And it's got my...
It's like 2001
orange.
Space Odyssey.
Yeah. Thanks, Kevin. That's all I have for right now, so you guys better just submit more to the challenge.
It's crazy when it's like extremely open and freeform. It's harder.
Yeah, it's really hard. Marcel says, whoa. So you have a little less than an hour for the challenge for Logan to see it. But if you want to create something within the next few hours, all day, you can still submit. And it depends who's going to be hosting and who will be the guest. So if you submit after 10:30 Pacific time, then Kathleen and Kirk will look at your submission.
Did they look at submissions yesterday?
Yeah.
Ooh.
They did.
Who did they choose? What happened?
I was watching when they chose something, but I forgot who it was.
Was it a different...
It was the same thing.
Okay.
The Lunar New Year.
So does the round start over, essentially?
Yeah.
Okay.
So every day there's a new thing, but it runs throughout the day. Caroline says, it's a hard challenge. Those colors are so bright.
That's where the white can help.
Yeah. You can always, change the value or overlap them and create something different. And you can animate it as long as you create it in Photoshop or Illustrator. Do you like Philip Guston's work?
I don't know if I know it. I probably do if I
know it.
recognize it. What does he do?
Alan
Oh, you can pull it
mentioned
up.
him. I'm going to search for it.
Perfect.
Ooh. He was a painter and printmaker in the New York school.
Cool. I mean, he sounds familiar.
Oh. There's some interesting, like, shapes that kind of remind me of your exploding stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. That looks like one of your eyes
Yeah,
or something.
it kind of reminds me of Dave McKean stuff. Granted, he was before Dave McKean, but of like modern things.
Yeah. That was Philip Guston, Grace. Hi, Aurelia. Welcome. We're here in Illustrator. If you are just joining, Logan is using Illustrator over a sketch that he created. And the whole point of this is to create something for screen printing. So he's really keeping that in mind with the color choices and the layers. So if you're interested in learning how to create something for print, this is perfect for you. And if you've just joined, you can always watch the replay of the beginning of this segment to see how he started out. Jade, I just got your submission. Thank you.
So we have two.
Yes, we have two.
Nice.
We need more. I know it's hard because this is the first stream of today, so it's hard to do something in an hour.
So then usually I'll do this in the Photoshop thing too, but for doing a screen print, layering over here, I usually do it by color. So there will be one that's blue 100 compared to, say, pink 100. And then I would end up making another one that's like blue 50 that just keeps track of what's what.
Did you have to practice the pen tool a lot before you got comfortable with it?
Yeah.
How did you first start using it?
Like the Wacom pen?
No,
or this
the pen tool in Illustrator.
I didn't manipulate it as much. It was a lot of just like click, 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 but then being able to bend and adjust the points and allowing it so you do less points along the way so it becomes a smoother kind of experience.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely was weird for a little while there in the beginning, but since then, now it feels, I mean, I still like drawing most compared to the two, but for doing really clean things and like working on the trackpad, I've gotten used to it. What does everyone use primarily?
What does everyone use for illustration, you mean?
Well, for if they use a pen or if they use the trackpad or a mouse.
Yeah, do you use a stylus, mouse, trackpad?
I haven't had a mouse in a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, you can drop the opacity as long as you keep, if you're using those colors specifically, you can play with the opacity and value.
Spiral.
Totally. We wouldn't be that mean. Like, you have to use it like that. So
I mean, maybe.
I want to say something really exciting about what's happening in 10 minutes. We're going to do a giveaway, and the giveaway is of an Illustrator and Photoshop pin. I'm holding them. Oh, yeah, you can see them. So this one matches my outfit.
This one
This one matches my outfit too. So stay on, and in 10 minutes I'll give you the prompt and tell you to be active in the chat so you can be chosen to win. So Francis says, I use a Wacom tablet. Gregory says, I use a trackpad on Illustrator and a tablet on Photoshop.
Yeah, that sounds...
Amber says, hi from Missoula, Montana. Wacom and pen all day.
Nice. Which kind of Wacom is it?
Yeah, which kind of Wacom? Thanks, Sam. I think the pens look amazing too.
Made them myself.
Yeah, you know, it's hard when you're carving away at the metal, but it's just such a rewarding product. I'm so happy that one of you gets to win. Eduardo uses a Wacom too. So does Kerwin.
Awesome.
Steven uses a mouse. Andrew, yeah, I'm all about that Wacom and pen life. It's definitely a lifestyle choice.
So then you have this kind of blending thing that happens where if this is just directly on the paper, you'll end up having this tone, but with the pink, it's gonna have this kind of tone.
Can you show the layer underneath so we can see what it's under, what it's over?
Yeah, so this pink one's one of them. And so for the helmet, right now I have it as the pink is just underneath it and it connects directly with this line.
Yeah.
But then on this one, it becomes this kind of messy thing. And then that allows, like, do I want to make the jacket the same color as this, or do I want to add details to the jacket, like patches or anything using this purple, so I have, like, variations I can do. And then these are the kind of, like, texture things that I could utilize in Photoshop, or in Illustrator, if I so desired to get that grungy look.
Yeah.
And like what I was doing, yeah.
Oh. I'm just reading what people are saying. Hi, Miriam. I can't deal with the mouse. I use the Wacom. Hi, is it Jonas or Jonas? Hi, he says we're cool.
Aw, you're cool too.
I needed to hear that today.
After all this rain.
We were all wet before because it was raining. Joey says, does this remind anybody else of the Gorillas?
I saw someone said Tank Girl also, which is totally a fan favorite of mine too.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking that up. Yeah, with the helmet.
Mm-hmm. And like the out of bound lines and stuff.
Intuos 4 still works great, says Dejan. Jamie Hewlett. I'm looking all this up because I learned so much
Just
from
keep track of it all.
Oh, so he's the artist that did Tank Girl.
Yeah.
Okay. Learning.
Yeah, so this is kind of one direction of doing it, where you have these pre-created brush strokes that are gonna represent the speckling look. And so this way you can kind of get different textures and values while allowing the screen printing to do its job too. And yeah, I typically use Photoshop for most of my printing jobs. That bike one that you're looking at is more like this, where I did like a very clean cut kind of process because I wanted like bold shapes. When going for, I was totally looking at Tank Girl and such to do the final of this, which is a lot more that looser line. And it was even one of those things where when I was looking at, I originally sketched this out in a way that was just loose because I wanted to be quick about it. But then when I finished doing this, I kind of liked the fact that these lines were kind of scribbly and the colors weren't really lined up right and it was super messy and like pink shows through. So after doing the sketch, originally I was going to do it the way I started showing right now, but I like this direction. I'm going to end up going this way, but I like kind of playing around with both, again, kind of like yesterday, to see which I actually prefer, because initially you could have one idea and then when you start messing things up, the other one seems better. So I'm going to flip back over to my Photoshop direction and do a similar kind of process.
Okay, so we're gonna transition to the Wacom.
Yeah, I don't know if we need the GoPro anymore.
I know, I'm moving it.
The sad GoPro.
It's like this. Okay. So you're good?
Yep.
Okay. So we're on the Wacom now.
What was the
sure
other
that
submission?
shows up.
What?
We actually have 5 submissions now.
Cool.
Yeah. Very exciting. You have about 35 minutes left, and we have a giveaway coming up too, so stay tuned for that. Hi, Janessa. 3rd day. So the sponge brush that you were using in Illustrator, was that a default brush in Illustrator?
That one was not. I got that from a texture pack.
Okay.
Yeah, the default brushes, I don't know if there's one that is already speckly, but it's called a sponge brush. If you look online, I'm sure there's free ones as well as ones you can purchase. But it also provides this thing of like one side or both sides. So depending on what you're wanting to do, I usually end up just taking this double side one and putting it in a mask layer so that it kind of, if I do make a curvature, you don't get that potential of the harsh line preventing it from looking smooth. But if you're doing textures along like flat surfaces or you want shadows going up like from the bottom, this one's really nice for that. Yeah, the default ones, I like, after doing it for so long, I end up just forgetting which ones were default because they've all blended together.
Yeah.
And I just end up going to the ones I've been using most often. So maybe.
Yeah, but if you search for sponge brush, there's a lot out there.
Do you know if Kyle, did he add anything to Illustrator?
I think it's just Photoshop
Okay.
that Kyle's brushes are included.
Yeah.
A lot of people are talking about the gorillas. This reminds them of that artwork style.
As it should.
Yeah.
It was very inspired by the gorillas.
All right, that's
So
what
it
we've been
makes
waiting
sense.
to hear. Everyone's like, is it just me?
What is happening?
Daniel says it's a really cool color combo. I agree.
Does anyone else have issues with like wanting to stay looser and then getting more defined? I certainly do.
Yeah. That's a big problem. Let us know if you have any other questions for Logan as he's working, and make sure that you look up the challenge, behance.net/live. If you're on there and you're in the chat, the challenge tab is at the top. You have half an hour to submit for us to see it right here, but if you submit later than that, the next stream will see it. Kirk and Kathleen. We have about 5 submissions right now.
Nice.
We'll be reviewing them in a few minutes after we do a giveaway of the pins. Hi, Nancy.
Which is incredibly lucky.
Yes.
Everyone loves pins.
You can put a pin on anything.
It's like
Your
putting a bird on
clothes,
anything.
Your bag, your pencil case. Boris, yeah, we ran out of pillows. We gave away too many of them. I don't know. All we got left with was pins.
Which are not good pillows. But you could put a pin on a pillow.
Imagine if you had the Illustrator pillow and then you put the Illustrator pin on it. It'd just be too much. And then like
The
you're
mother and
working in
daughter.
Illustrator while sitting with the Illustrator pillow. Why did you switch now to Photoshop?
So I was basically just showing how I would tackle something in Illustrator compared to how I would be doing this one in Photoshop. And for the style I want from this one, I prefer a Photoshop direction for getting like...
Okay, so that was just an exploration.
Yeah.
It's not like you're merging the two things you just made.
No, it's but it does showcase like I always do my sketching in Photoshop, bring it into Illustrator, and then use that as like a locked layer and then work on top of. Kind of like how yesterday I did that for the toaster. And so in this case, I still wasn't sure if I wanted to go with this route, which is the like kind of splattery tank girl style, or if I would want to go the Illustrator very clean route. And so I was attempting that now to kind of do a direct comparison. And I feel like a lot of artwork out there right now is a lot of the clean, precise Illustrator look and feel, which is kind of what came from the tech industry. Mm-hmm. And so I feel being able to embrace the splatter effect is probably better for the energy for something that's definitely talking about movement.
Yeah.
Or a bike.
Earlier you used a shortcut to make sure your brush stroke only applied inside a shape. How did you do that?
In Illustrator?
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna hop back here. Don't want to stroke yet. But if you end up taking this circle, and the shortcut would be Command 7. But for instance, if you hold Shift, you can drag the line however you want in a sort of clockwise manner. But once you make that line and then apply whatever kind of texture you want, say this is this pink, and then the object you want it to mask with is on top. So you select both of those and do Command 7. It'll end up inside the shape. And you can always add back this pink.
Oh, Command 7.
And then with this texture pack, even though it has this spatter, if you increase the point size, it'll adjust accordingly. So if you're making a really large like mural, which I had to do at one point over a summer, we ended up having to make these like gigantic speckle things because they need to be legible from far away. But yeah, the quick masking layer is super helpful for Illustrator, especially when you want to like contain all that stuff so it's clean and messy.
Yeah. Nice. So Logan doesn't really remember where this stuff is from, but if you search sponge brush for Illustrator, there's a ton of things.
Yeah, there's a lot of websites that just provide user-made content like that. So you can find those forums where it'll be like $5 packs, free packs, kind of like how typographical websites work. Mm-hmm. Where you can get free ones on Font Squirrel, but you can also pay for ones.
Yep. Everything, a lot of things are like that. There's free and there's not.
Some free comics on Comixology.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Sid. Okay,
how many people
guys
still use Comixology? I'm curious.
Okay, we'll answer that question after the giveaway. We have the pins to give away, so time to be active in the chat. Tell us where you would put these pins. And as long as you're active in the chat, you will be entered to win them. How excited are you? I'm very excited to give these away. Pins! Helen says, totally still looking at Comixology.
Awesome. I used it for a very long time, and then I ended up just going back to buying comics, but now I'm running out of space.
Yeah.
In my house. So, well, my apartment.
Yeah, because you can't throw them away after you read them, right?
Well, some people do, but I don't understand why. I know, it does deserve a gasp. But I do the whole like back and board, and it looks silly because it's just putting it in place.
Okay,
like,
sorry, we have a winner. We have a winner of the pins, so you can calm down on the chat, but we still want you to be active. Vic Naresh, you won.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Vic. Thanks for participating.
And they get both pins?
Yeah, both
Nice.
pins. People said where they would put their pins, backpack, jacket, blah, blah, blah. But the best answer I saw was on my forehead. And it was by a guy named Logan.
Oh, great. I'm glad we're in the same boat.
I'm going to put this on Logan's forehead after we finish. Actually, it
Just
could
go
be
for
like
this
an
and then
eyebrow
it cuts
piercing
out.
or something.
Yeah, or like on the nose.
The other side of your nose.
Ugh.
Yeah, who wants to win the pin that was stuck into Logan's nose piercing? No, don't worry.
I mean,
Don't worry, Vic. The pins are clean.
I do already have a hole in my nose, so
You do.
We just have to take this out.
Daniel says they could be wedding rings.
Ooh. But then if it has to be like, you have to match, your signs have to match. So if they're like, oh, I have Lightroom, and they're like, oh, photos.
Daniel says, why don't you just draw the outline and fill it with the bucket tool for speed?
I sort of like just this textured brush thing, because sometimes mistakes happen. Like these little things. But yeah, I mean, that's a valuable direction for it.
The edges look so much more natural this way, but I guess you could like
you could essentially
do
this. And then you have like this little thing. But it basically does the same. It just, since it's a textured brush, it tends to have a little bit of a mishap there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to try to retain like these little parts, because then when it prints, it'll have this rough kind of mistake look.
Jan says, am I the only one that would wear those pins to funerals and weddings and fancy restaurants? You're not the only one.
They could be really good cufflinks too.
Yeah.
I also had a long-haired version of this, but I don't think it had the same kind of tank girly gorillas vibe.
Daryl asked, does the brush have to be made into bitmap or dissolve setting?
Nope. It's just kind of the natural brush that I have. So it's got this texture already. This is actually the Big Fun dry brush again.
Oh, Big Fun dry brush.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll find out for sure. It's rough, dry, fun, big.
Oh, rough, dry, fun, big
But
brush?
either, yeah, it's just the dyslexia.
So rough is the first word. That's all.
Rough, dry, fun, big, exclamation point. But yeah, it provides like, some of these brushes end up having different transparency things because they're trying to replicate oil paint or watercolor. Okay. And that ends up not being great for screen printing because you have the issue of it not being the 100%, and then you'll have weird bleeding. So this one provides the kind of texture look I would be wanting. Same with the spatter brush, which I'll be using, which also provides a really awesome texture look without going away from the 100% opacity.
Okay, let's look at some submissions that we've gotten so far. Oh, it's raining bricks. Is this
way worse than meatballs?
This is what it felt like this morning when I was walking to work. I felt like I was trying to fight the bricks. That's cool. I like the... What is the thinking behind this? I want to know. By Nelson. Is it representing something? Is it a metaphor? Here's Daniel. That's cool. Skating. This reminds me of...
Is it snowboarding?
Oh, I guess
For the
it's
Olympics?
Is this Chloe Kim, who is amazing? Is it snowboarding? Let us know. Oh, look at this texture. It's like
leather?
It's like a wall.
Yeah.
To me.
Was that pulled from somewhere?
Yeah, where did you get this texture, Lindsay? And what was your inspiration for this? Very cute. I like it's very dainty, the movement. Here is a fast cat. That's cool. This has a lot of movement, not only in the actual subject matter, but the way that the shapes are superimposed, it creates a very dynamic feeling. What do you think of this one, Logan?
Cool. I mean, that's a nice use of the colors too, kind of mixing together.
Yeah.
And there's some transparencies, I think, in that lighter green.
Mm-hmm.
And some textures there.
Lots of texture. Yeah. I like that one. Daniel says, snowboard trick from the Olympics. Yeah.
Nice.
Here's Daryl's.
Awesome.
That's so cool. Ooh. This is from Jason.
It's got some editorial style going for it.
Yeah. I like the gradient and how the two colors are mixing.
Yeah.
Who made the fast cat? I don't see the name right now, but I'll check. Alexander. Here's a girl on a bike. I love that you use that sponge brush texture. That's great. So all of you, you have 20 minutes left for the challenge. And this is Lisa's swimming. I really like the style of this one. It's so peaceful, and Logan, you have to see this.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
It actually has a very similar kind of tone, I think, to the poster it's using as reference too.
Yeah. And here's a car using lines as the colors.
Awesome.
And then that's the first one we saw. So great work, everyone. It's amazing to see what you've created with those colors. And we'll be looking at the rest after the challenge is up. So you have another few minutes to submit, 18 minutes. And then we'll be choosing a winner out of those. So Logan is working hard to get this done. And make sure when you're submitting for the challenge, you're submitting something you created today, specifically for the challenge. And we can't accept old work that you've created before.
Cheating.
Yeah, that's the whole point, to do it today. Ugliesa says, love the swimming girl. Caroline says, great work. Yeah, everyone is praising each other. I love that, and the community that we have here.
Super good to have.
Yeah.
So I was just testing some color options in comparison to what I had previously sketched out, where whether or not this pink could work well with this pink, which I'm not totally sure. Then you can have this for shadows, for instance.
Yeah.
But that will develop in time. So.
Christopher says, you've been a great streamer, Logan. Cool work and good instruction.
Thank you. What other kind of art forms does anyone involve themselves with, Adobe program-wise or otherwise? I'm curious I tend to explore a lot of stuff, so this is just like one aspect.
Yeah, let us know in the chat. What else do you create using Adobe products? What other art forms are you involved in?
What other programs besides these two?
Hi, Andres. Levi says, After Effects, big time.
Awesome.
Jim says, After Effects is a blast to learn. Wow.
And a nightmare to learn.
I guess you have fun learning it. Fishwesh loves your Frankenstein sticker.
Oh, thanks.
Can I get it somewhere?
I actually have some, so I could essentially... I made it originally for a team thing at a company a while ago, but I ended up just acquiring a ton of them.
Oh.
So I will be selling those from that batch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you sell stuff on your website?
It's not hooked up right now, but people can email me.
Okay. Yeah, Vishwash, why don't you email Logan and ask him about that and remind him?
Reminders are good.
Yes. Simone just submitted. Yay! I just got it. Gregory does oil paintings.
Awesome.
When he's not designing or illustrating.
Oil is my favorite when it comes to painting mediums.
Lauren likes classic sketching on paper. Christopher's making linoleum cut prints. I love watching those being made. It seems so satisfying. I've never done it myself.
Linoleum?
Yeah.
It's nice.
What's the thing called?
The brayer, or the brayer is the inking. I forget.
Remind me what this thing is called that you carve the linoleum with. I've always wanted to do that. It's like my next thing that I want to do.
I mean, you could do
watch
some
people.
cool type with it. Also.
Yeah. I actually have a poster made. It's the alphabet made lino cut. Anna says linoleum is sick. Anita uses Adobe Lightroom.
Long live linoleum.
Vic also loves oil on canvas. Ashton makes cut paper illustrations.
Awesome. That's up some
Cool.
time-intensive work.
Yeah, very precise, very time intensive. Ryan's non-digital work is mixed media and spray-painted stencil paintings. But he uses Photoshop to make his stencils. That's cool. I mean, it's great to have a balance between the digital and analog in your work.
I think that's how Shepard Fairey used to do his giant wheat pastes. It was also Photoshop manipulation, then printing it out on a giant thing at like Office Max or something.
Cool. Christopher says, I think those lino cut things are just called cutters.
Well,
makes
that's direct.
sense.
Yeah.
Terrence says, pastel charcoal is my fave. Helen is using mostly watercolor, but getting into digital. I love watercolor too. Have you tried using the watercolor brush in Adobe Sketch on the iPad?
It's pretty good.
It's so cool. Even if you're not making anything, if you just sit there and play with it and mix them and watch them like run.
Because it like bleeds out.
Yeah.
It tries to replicate that.
It's very cool. Richa uses Photoshop for game development. Cedric says, all my work is digital, but I love to make culinary creations.
Ooh. With Photoshop.
Can you eat anything that you've made on Photoshop?
Yeah, maybe. The Nintendo had one of the weird user situations that I didn't think about where for their Switch games, the cartridge tastes really gross because they don't want kids eating the cartridge because they're small enough to like ingest. So I've licked my Mario Odyssey cartridge and it tastes really gross.
Just to see how bad it was?
Oh yeah, it's gross.
Oh yeah, Helen doesn't have the iPad. Well, if you have a friend
Shucks.
that has an iPad and can download Sketch, it's free, you can just test it out. Everyone has so many hobbies, that's great. So we have a lot of submissions so far, and you only have 10 minutes left, but if you want to be part of the challenge, you have all day. And the next guest is Kirk Wallace with Kathleen Martin as the host. So she's here, she's getting all ready. She's eating her breakfast so she can be ready to talk to all of you. And they'll be reviewing the next set of submissions that come in after 10:30. So if you want us to see it, you've got 10 more minutes. Okay, Anna has the answers. The tools to cut linoleum are chisels/gouges.
Right. Gouges sound so violent.
I know.
Granted, chisel also, I guess, sounds violent, but less.
I guess you are gouging it out.
Yeah.
And the roller is the brayer.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anna.
I still have some of those somewhere, I think on the East Coast,
Yeah.
but they're a pain to move.
How do you limit the layer to the former outline?
It's a quick mask, so this kind of thing is all being attached to this one major shape. So if I was to make this kind of shape and then create one layer above it and do Control, click on that layer and create a clipping mask, you'd be able to do this inside of it.
That's very essential.
Yeah,
Saves
which
so
is
much
super
time.
good for like not having to like try to retain the lines. In this case, since I'm trying to go for like a messy look anyway, it's less of a concern, but for like screen printing when wanting to trap the shape so it's like exactly layered, it is very helpful. But I use that all the time for comic stuff and coloring where you need a gradient. And so you want to create a gradient that's just contained in that shape without it just like going all over the place.
Jewellen says, thank you for sharing the quick tip.
Sure.
Yeah. Fernando, yes, check the challenge tab at the top of the chat window if you're on behance.net/live, and you'll see all the details for the submissions. The theme is movement, and there's 3 colors that you have to use. But you can play with the opacity and value of those colors. How do you know when the composition of your illustrations is correct? Says Marcos.
The composition. That's usually from the early sketching phase. If I was this far in, the only time that kind of adjusts, which is really frustrating, is if you show it to someone and they're like, what do it look like flipped? And then you just do the horizontal flip and realize the composition's actually better this other way when you thought. But that should also be solved in the sketching. So all the sketches kind of should capture that issue right at the beginning so you don't end up falling into a situation where like you could have had a better piece if only.
Yeah.
There goes my phone.
God, he drops his phone every
I know.
time. I'm gonna get it because we forgot it yesterday.
That's true. Thank you. It actually just really wants to escape my terrorist reign of it.
It's like, stop, you're addicted to me.
Stop looking at me.
Stop looking at me. Christopher says, I've apparently been wasting my life not using clipping masks.
It's super helpful.
And he
The
made
way I
this
learned
face.
it was way different because I had to go through a whole like, take this, subtract that, add this. And then when I realized you could just do it in the layer system and it just goes on top, that was a huge lifesaver. So I've certainly gone through the phases of just wasting time and energy on something like that. But ultimately, can't think about that past.
Yeah.
Or else you'll be driven insane.
Are you still using the rough big dry brush?
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple people have asked. Logan is in Photoshop using the rough big dry brush from Kyle's brushes, which are included in Photoshop. And he's working on his Wacom Cintiq 22-inch HD right now. There's the, oh, he
Here's
just
the
changed the
spatter one.
brush. Now he's using the spatter. Julie is giving some advice about the rule of thirds, the golden rectangle, spiral template. Look them up for your compositions.
And those are kind of things that once you establish knowing them from like school or reading up on them, there's not really a lot of thought that goes into it. It just comes naturally. So
Just make it a habit
Yeah.
to take into consideration at all times. We have 5 more minutes for your submissions for this stream. For the challenge.
the ultimate showdown.
Alan has a skateboard company in Chicago called Character.
Cool. How long's it been around for? I've not heard of it.
You used to live there, right?
Yeah. I used to skateboard. I haven't in a long time.
Costanza asked, how will you have 50% opacity of one color when with screen printing?
So it's how the mesh is on the screen. So if you make one that's extremely fine, you're gonna get a more detailed kind of like breakdown of all the things. If you do a looser mesh, it's gonna be less that, but it's kind of like the blending of the inks and, well, paints technically, and their transparency. So you mix it before doing the whole process, so you can like lessen the amount of that paint being used, and you create this transparent. So when it goes on top, it's going to be like a thinner coat, similar to like if you're painting with acrylics, you can mix it with water and just make it like a looser kind of transparency so it blends with the bottom layer better. Yeah, I don't do that anymore. I end up having to outsource all the screen printing to Delicious usually. But since I worked with them closely, there's not a whole lot of conversation that needs to happen. Just kind of like, here's the handoff. Do you have any questions? Mm-hmm. And then I let them take it.
Are there a lot of resources online if people are interested in screen printing or?
Yeah, there's also classes you can take, and Blick, I know sometimes has screen print setups for certain events.
Oh,
so you can go
cool.
like print your own shirt or something and they'll do a little bit of an instruction. But yeah, just asking around online, there's certainly videos which are super helpful. The only thing that's super annoying to try to figure out is if you're having to do the emulsion fluid at home and burn your own screens. I tried doing that and there is no bulb you can really get that's great if you have a poor setup. So if you have like a quick burn access, which my college did, it saves a lot of time and energy.
Yeah, there's a lot of places that do like classes, and maybe you can be a member and be able to print there.
Yeah, I think around here was it Crucible or something in Oakland has
There's
a lot of
also
like
Workshop SF. I've been there for a class, and they showed us how they make the screens, but I was like, oh, I want to come back and actually learn that, because it was mostly like learning how to actually print it when they had made the screens for us.
Yeah, which is the like, do you have enough muscle strength to pull this as opposed to actually knowing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun.
Hi, Ren. Who's going to be hosting later. I've been looking at all the submissions. Gonna get ready to show some as soon as we get to the deadline.
So I think this looseness is good, but this is where I start questioning myself.
Are you locking the layers to color?
Physically, yeah. So this top layer that's like the overlaying sketch, I can still toggle, but it's locked so it doesn't accidentally switch on me. And then the palette I just have locked because I just need it for reference. So the only thing not locked is this actual working layer. This white one I just had for sort of reference to how this color would look on its own without the paper. But I'll probably mostly be using this paper so I know what it's going to look like against it once it's printed. So this one could also be locked, but there's a lot of color nuances that will come probably after this, where like, here's the final laydown, like, is this the amount of like mess I want to have, and do I go with it or not? It's a very hard question.
Lisa says, love this look for a book print.
Yeah, this would actually be like a good wood block kind of style and print also. 'Cause it has that messy kind of not quite filling in all the gaps.
Mm-hmm. Alan says that I think that's what we were talking about.
The
skateboard shop has been there for 16 years.
Cool. Where is it located in Chicago?
Give us more detail so Logan can visit next time.
Exactly.
Christopher says, might have missed it. Did you pull the Illustrator shapes you did back into Photoshop to paint over, or did you just switch back to your initial sketch?
I just switched back to the initial sketch, but you could absolutely do that. But the sketch was sort of just a reference point for the illustration file to test it out on both ends. I also did this with a recent client where they wanted a very clean thing at first, so I ended up doing a illustration in Illustrator, and then as time went on, they kept being like, more messy, and then next, more messy, and then it kept happening until the point of eventually, like, it was too abstract for me to even get down with.
Oh.
But yeah, I went from like Illustrator back to Photoshop, and then just kept breaking down in Photoshop. But
Hi, Daniel. Thanks for tuning in. Ren says, have you done any risograph prints? Yes.
it's here.
He is totally into it, and he was showing us a few prints that he's made. They're really awesome. This is an exploding watermelon. Oh, it's this way.
I did the whole flip of the GoPro.
And then a grapefruit and an apple. They're super cool, and they actually pop a lot more in person. It's really neon pink.
Has anyone else played around with a risograph before?
I can't wait to try it. We have one here,
Yeah.
and I've been invited to try it. I will do that soon.
A lot of companies seem to be getting them just to like give the people working there some fun, like practical thing they can touch,
Yeah.
which I can totally get down with.
All right, so we reached the end for the challenge. Thanks to everyone who submitted, and if you submit now, you will be reviewed by Kirk and Kathleen. So for example, Roland, you're going to be the first one that they get to see because you submitted right after our deadline.
You win. First one in wins.
Steven says, what kind of music do you listen to when you work? Do you have a playlist?
I don't have one specific playlist, and it sort of depends on the day or what I'm working on. If I'm doing work for bands or anything musical, I'll usually listen to that soundtrack the whole time, or at least until I get driven crazy. Mm-hmm. So I'm doing a iPhone game right now where I'm working with a guy to make music for the game, and in that situation, it's like a 20-minute long just kind of background Brian Eno-esque soundscape. So that's like already great to work to. But then I've worked with bands where I don't want to listen to their music all the time because it's like too intense. So it could be morning and I'm working on it and I want to try to get into that mood, but I'll just have to toggle back to something that's like less intense.
Yeah, it depends on your mood.
And it's Spotify. I usually listen to albums all the way through also. I have a playlist for running or like physical activity, but when working, I like just going from beginning to end, and then when it ends, I'll keep working for a while and then realize the music stopped, and then I have to go back and turn it on to something else. So yeah, a lot of I listen to a lot of, kind of going back to yesterday, I still listen to punk emo stuff, but I also listen to a lot of metal, a lot of classic rock, lots of like rap and hip hop stuff. And that's usually it. What does anyone else listen to?
What's your... Sid says reggae.
Nice.
What's your favorite? Cedric says grunge rock. I wonder... Is anyone else interested in seeing a view of Logan using his stylus? Because if you are, if I have enough people, I can show you with the GoPro really quick. I saw one person ask. Amanda says, too much to mention. I guess a lot of music, lots of different kind of music. Kerwin says hip hop, but when I work, movie scores.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that work to
Okay, everyone wants to see you.
Okay.
Okay, let's see if we can do this with the GoPro, unless it's flipped from what we were showing before. It's flipped?
Is it? Am I working upside down in Inception?
No, we won't show it until we flip it the right way. Okay, it's gonna happen, guys. Led Zeppelin, Christina. Yes, I'm a big fan. When I was a teenager, I was obsessed with Led Zeppelin.
It's a good thing to be obsessed with.
Okay, so we're showing on the GoPro here. This is what I see.
Do you see what I see?
Do you see what I see? Okay, so here he is, live in action. Logan, how do you feel right now? How is this feeling to you?
Intimidated and scared.
Here he is with his stylus and his Wacom Cintiq.
It also does this whole thing.
Oh, very fancy.
Which is very handy for, again, tricking the circles. So you can get away with hand motions that you might not be comfortable with.
Yeah.
By tilting it.
And he's got his other hand on the laptop. He's using 2 devices.
Mm-hmm.
He's coloring in.
I don't even have to look at this one.
He doesn't use the bucket tool because he loves the texture. Look at him go.
Ew, bucket tool.
Nick says it's a 24-inch Cintiq.
This one?
I've been saying 22.
I think the one I have is 22. This one might be different than that one or something.
Okay. Ren says you need more devices. Here.
I have an iPad over here.
And let's just
and
put this
phone.
in the frame. Okay, so that's how he works, everyone. I think you got a good view.
Oh God, it broke.
GoPro down. It's fine. It's cushioned, I think.
I mean, they do go through a lot of beat 'em up sports situations, so I'm sure it's doing okay for the most part.
Okay. I'm not touching it anymore. Your phone already fell. It's like we're just throwing devices everywhere.
I have this phone because I super broke my other phone.
Super broke?
Super broke. I dropped it while biking or snowboarding or anything, and then I put it on the counter in the kitchen, and the cat batted it off the counter and it shattered. So apparently cats are the ultimate destruction on that stuff. At least it's not a plant. I didn't try eating it and then getting sick.
Daniel says, do you use the buttons on the Cintiq? Because he says my arm's always in the way when I try to use them.
Yeah, I used to use one of these. The bottom one I had set to grab. You have this zoom thing.
Oh, wow.
That the bottom can do, but it's kind of finicky, or I'm just not in tune with it. So you can, woo.
Yeah.
With this, you can use the space bar to just grab and drag real easily. Because I'm already doing hotkeys, and you can set these to hotkeys.
Okay.
But there's enough hotkeys that this only has 8 buttons you could set to. But they tried. I mean, I know people who certainly use it. I just don't personally.
So we're gonna review the submissions.
Cool.
So I need your undivided attention. Mm-hmm. And then we can finish your thing. Okay.
Or at least continue with it.
Yeah, not finished.
Yeah.
It's all a process. So this
is
is from Devin Tengu. Do you know who this is?
I do not. Is Tengu someone I should know?
Should we know? I like how you use the pattern here. It's cool.
Yeah, is the pattern something you made or a pattern that was pulled from somewhere? Curious.
Yes. Curious. I love this color combination, so I keep wanting to compliment people for using it, and then I'm like, oh no, they had to. Okay, so here is, do you know what this is?
No, I'm just going to call him Bike Satan, though.
Bike Satan. Oh, I think this is your girl on the bike.
Is it?
With the helmet.
Kind of reminds me of European art, like the Tintin kind of stuff, which I'm a huge fan of, but...
Okay, so she was attacked by this character who took her bike wheel, and now she's like hiding behind a tree.
This is just like an extreme version of the worst situation of your bike theft.
I know.
When they steal your bike and attack you with your bike.
Wow.
I did once in Boston, to get most Boston as you could get, watched a guy ride a bike down the sidewalk, and another guy clotheslined him off the bike for riding on the sidewalk, and then the guy threw his bike at him, And they just started fighting.
Oh my god.
It's
That's crazy. Okay, this is from Kathy.
Parkour Sunrise.
Yeah. That's cool. So I guess you used images that you
Like
superimposed.
a collage kind of situation with some textures.
Very cool.
I like the watercolor look of the buildings.
Yeah.
Ooh, animating cactus.
Cactus. That's very
Also
cool.
going back to the sketches of yesterday and how everyone loves a good cactus.
Yeah, everyone loves them. They're just so cute.
And they can never die,
Yeah.
so you don't have to worry about losing it.
Oh, this is the same one. Here are the stairs and the bike.
With the measurement lines in the central point. I think those are measurement lines. Make sure the isometrics work, and my least favorite thing.
Yeah. Aww. Tatsuya.
Another animation.
Oh, it's animated. I love this. It's very cute. It's breathing.
It's a cute little cat.
Very cute.
Yeah, you could probably pull out some whites on like the fur to kind of give some more contrast on the back against that orange.
Yeah, good tip. Here's Anita. Nice.
Awesome.
What do you recommend with the hair?
Here's you can either get too detailed or not detailed enough. So the fact that this has like a little bit of orange in it, and it might be nice to have it just as green so you have it sectioned out. So if the background's like one green, the hair is another green, but then the details of the hair, which you started doing here, are the background, and the skin itself these two colors against each other are pretty aggressive because they're of a similar value. But if there's some highlights on the skin, I think it could help. And there could be some highlights of the green in the hair that's the lighter green, if the green was a darker hair. Like having the hair be like one solid color and then focus your efforts on like one area of the hair to kind of imply the wave.
Yeah.
Kind of like if you look at the sheen on hair, that could just be the one thing on the hair and it implies the rest of the details, so you don't have to like get too involved in the strokes of each individual.
Yeah, because you could take hours to do that. Cool. Ooh. So what happened
It's like
here?
an editorial story of how
Becoming one with nature.
it's like Wizard of Oz-ish.
Oh, maybe.
Well, that's what I think of for red slippers anyway.
Yeah, I feel like this person went to the beach and they were like, oh, I can't take off my shoes because I'll get sand in my feet. And then they were like, I need to become one with nature. And then they took off their shoes. And then they were happy.
Your story is much grander than mine. Mine was just post-House Crush, my non-existent punk band name.
Oh.
That's sweet.
Rooster. Running rooster. That's cool. Hi, Ashur.
Some really nice textures in that.
Hi, everyone who's joined recently. We're just looking at submissions for the challenge. This is from Lindsay.
It's like snow angel motion.
Oh, Snow Angel.
Yeah.
It also reminds me of the man,
The man.
like Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh, the anatomically correct.
Like how you can see how the arms would be.
Which is really, everyone doing snow angels is honoring Leonardo
Yes.
with their snow angel.
Oh, look at this. So proud the way that he's
being
walking
crocky.
around. So crocky. Good one. Eduardo. Nice pose. So what is going on in the background?
Yeah, I'm curious. Is that fire or trees?
And by the way,
Slash
there's a
western, kind of like you've entered the town.
Yeah, it looks very Western.
Yeah.
There's a little bug, which is why the red color doesn't show up.
Basically, all the colors here except for the green is like very western.
Yeah.
Some nice motion.
Ooh. That's by Paul.
Was this also a Kyle's brush use? It looks like a dry brush.
Yeah. Here's Ahmed. There's the wolf.
That guy's gonna be eating real good.
So dangerous. Very cool. I like the texture you used.
It reminds me of like soft rice paper, kind of Japanese prints, which is nice.
Ooh, the movement here is like, it's like stars rising or something.
Shooting stars are all planes.
Wow.
I'm curious what the reason for the 2 red hills, or if that's just to kind of add other colors to what would otherwise be green, because then you have that separation of like just green and orange, which can be a little drastic. But it is of the thirds.
Yes.
Bottom is a third.
You got the rule.
Yeah.
Here's Simone. That's cool.
That's like one of those eye trick things.
Yeah, I feel like I'm getting
intense.
hypnotized or something.
Hypnotized to win.
Here's Darbaz. It's like a tropical beach using that white negative space.
Kind of has a watercolor printmake feel going for it. Oh, another hypnotize.
Oh. I'm being drawn into the void. Carlos.
It's a nice style. Is this a luchador?
Oh. I like how you use the sponge
Yeah.
brush. Here's the raining bricks again, and here are the
It
ones
could be
that
Lego
we
bricks,
saw.
which would be great.
Oh yeah,
Less scary.
that's the snowboarding,
The wall texture,
the cat,
Twiddle.
turtle, this one here,
Car.
and that's the first one.
Explosion.
Yeah. So let's see. Shall you stop me when you see something you
Sure.
like?
I think I have a 3, and I just need another like quick go through.
Okay, so we'll narrow it down to 3.
Mm-hmm. Bike Satan.
Think about it. He's
think
really thinking,
I am.
you guys.
There's some good ones this time.
We have some previous winners in here, so we might want to choose
okay.
a couple and just see
Okay.
if they've won before.
I think I like the rooster one
Okay.
as one of. Yeah, I like the blending that's going on here.
Yeah. That is cool. I'm going to try to see if we can zoom in. Yeah, it's really, the principles that you were talking about are really used here.
Yeah, it has like a nice energy going for it, and like the not perfection kind of layering is really nice. So you get that like purpley red mixed with oranges.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we do this one? It's approved. Okay. The rooster
There's the
wins.
other like if it lines up with previous.
We just want to make sure that the person winning hasn't won before, so they might already have a subscription.
That's when their follow-up picture is putting the pin on the pillow.
Yes.
You have to be like, how'd you get that?
Okay, great job. Was it Lisa? Oh no, Lisa says she loves it.
You
I
can
have
love
to
your own
check.
work. I guess.
I have to check who it was because I don't see a name right here.
Jenny?
Jenny?
Oh.
Jenny,
Yeah.
you won!
Congratulations.
Congratulations! You win Creative Cloud. We love the movement and the layering you did.
Feel good.
Nice. So shall we go to your screen to just recap what we did today?
Sure. There's definitely going to be more exploration on this one post what we've seen here, but this is ultimately introducing what the layering technique of like a screen printing process would look like, where this bottom color is this pink one is going to be a kind of 50-ish% on top of this paper, so it gives you this tone that's going to work well with the actual out-of-the-box kind of color, which is this much harsher pink, and how the two of those can kind of work together, and then creating a trap. So there's areas where this kind of overlay can happen, which I'm at least a big fan of, where you get this other purple out of these two colors, But Photoshop's really nice for doing this grungy, not quite perfect feel. And then in comparison of trying this much cleaner kind of geometric like illustration work, which again, kind of going back to getting clients of certain types, some clients are going to request this kind of style and other ones are going to request the other kind of style. For this bike piece, it's much more of a personal project, so I'm able to just kind of go down the path of expressive, more dirty patterning techniques. But a lot of clients do want a clean, how can I use this for like a lot of different situations? And
would clients generally say, I want it to be done in Illustrator, or would they say things that you have to translate? Like, I want it to be print and screen and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it'll depend. Like, if it's going to be a web or mobile project, absolutely do it, well, 80 to 90% of the time do it in Illustrator because it's just going to be adaptable to different sizes and formats. If it's just like a banner at the top of a page, like a blog, I'll do Photoshop sometimes just because it's only going to be like this and scale down. When I did mural stuff, that just kind of has to be Illustrator because Photoshop will just get blown out if you do it. And the file will just get so huge. Because if you end up doing a 600 DPI file with tons of layers, it ends up being like a 2 gig thing, which my machine anyways starts chugging real hard too. So
yeah,
being aware of like your memory and space availability and then what the client needs are and balancing those things out. But yeah, I doubt any client aside, well, most clients aren't going to say it. It's either presumed or it's up to you. So people who work in Illustrator doing comics, pretty much everyone I know uses Photoshop or Manga Studio because that's what everyone has access to in the industry. Because if you have an Illustrator file and you hand it off to most people, they might not know what to do with it.
Okay, one last question from the chat. Do you have any little creative habits, like carrying a sketchbook around?
Yes.
Yes. You should check out yesterday's stream. At the beginning, we showed Logan's sketchbook.
I have a waterproof backpack that I usually take with me when I bike ride or walk anywhere, and that has tons of zippers and pockets. So one of them I have all the kind of like pens I typically use stored, which is a set of microns that's a 01, a 02, and a 05. And then a plain old Sharpie that's still got some point to it, a highlighter, and some like Copic markers of middle ground dryness, and then just like erasers and leads for.
What
I usually use a
does
mechanical
middle ground dryness mean?
Kind of like what I was doing in the sketchbook yesterday, which is like you have black line, and then you could water that down and create like a gray tone. So instead of having to go through the hatching, you could just use this Copic marker that's like a mid-tone gray to do quick shadows. And then another pocket, I always have my sketchbook. I usually always have my laptop, which has another separate zipper inside there, and my iPad and the pencil.
All right, you got all of the details. What
Yes.
Logan carries around him every day. You saw his techniques on Photoshop and Illustrator. Everyone says they've learned a lot. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course, thank you.
It's been really fun. And make sure you stay tuned because next we have Kirk Wallace and Kathleen for the last day for them too. So
Shed some tears.
yes, it's been so great. Dragons Unite. We're both Year of the Dragon. So is Kirk. Oh, he found out he wasn't?
Oh.
Oh, they traded. Okay.
So wait, you are? Oh.
Kathleen decided to be a dragon.
Nice. Dragons are cool.
But thank you, everyone. Buy dragons, buy dogs, whatever year you
Whatever
are.
animal you want to be, too.
Yeah.
If it doesn't fit in the 12, you're still good.
Totally. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time, and stay tuned for the rest of today. Bye.
Bye.